Hello, colleagues. I created a page that has a lot of resources based off of our last session. We talked a lot about ways to revise the language that we use in our classrooms, and I created this video to kind of preview that. But I want to begin by showing you how powerful the language that we use can be. At the beginning of the semester, I switched my assignment, but I used to have my students write an educational autobiography. And I wanted to show you an example of one that I received a couple years ago. So in this particular paragraph, the student is talking about it's a memorable experience, but not in a positive way. All right, so she writes, "There the nightmare started." So she first came back to school. Since I miraculously scored a decent grade on the placement test for composition, I was assigned my first English 1A course with Professor. We didn't want to include any names. Hell. That word describes her class in a very accurate manner. From the very first day of class, the intimidation begun with the harsh tone of voice, the success statistics of the class. The professor that will say, only 2 of you are going to get an A, among other antics that made me want to run for the hills. All right. Well, luckily, I was able to kind of change this student's perception of writing, because when she came to my class, she had zero confidence. And I actually read part of this paper to the class. I pulled her off to the side one day and I asked, because I was really impressed by this. And the reaction that she gave me was priceless. So I read the introduction and the whole class cheered. They gave her a huge applause, right? That moment right there kind of gave her the confidence that she needed. And I saw much more of her because she got an A in that 1A 95. She worked in my class as an academic coach for a couple of years. She graduated from CSU Stanislaus, and I think now she's at Pacific working on her master's, and she hopes to be one of our colleagues one day. So I just wanted to share that with you. And unfortunately, I have received several examples like this. I have students in their mid-20s writing about how their third grade teacher said that because you spoke Spanish, you were going to be stupid for the rest of your life. I mean, it's a terrible thing. And, they still kind of carry that weight, right? They carry the idea of that with them. So they come into our classroom, so they are very vulnerable. So we need to do the best that we can to make them feel wanted, welcome. What? Okay, so I included a very, it's a pretty reflective and intensive workshop where you really take a hard look at your syllabus and you deconstruct it. So just a quick preview. One of the things that you can look at is language, right? And specifically tone, right? We want our students to feel welcome. We want to make sure that we don't have any language that might make them feel like an outsider, and we want to let them know that they see us, right, as an avenue for support. And the kinds of language that we want to include, right? We want to make them feel like they're engaged. We want to validate our practices, provide a rationale, right? We want to let them know that they're going to have the opportunity to create, and that we respect them, and in turn they will probably respect us. We want to avoid a deficit and punitive language. So here's a chart that's kind of contrasts the difference, right? On the left-hand side, we have some examples of language that's welcoming, right? And on the right, we have the opposite. So take a look here, right? So for example, if you have the part of the syllabi where you have your contact information, the hours the hours that you hold for them. One thing that you might want to do, if you haven't already, is replace this idea of the office hours and change it to student hours. Sometimes students read that, and unless you tell them that, yeah, these are the hours that I have set aside for you, they may think, well, that's the time that the professor is in there working. But if you change it to student hours, it would be more welcoming. So here's an example, right? I welcome you to contact me outside of class and student hours. But look it over here. If you need to contact me. That sounds like, well, I don't really want you to, but if you have to. So that was just a quick preview of what this workshop is all about. Later on, there is the deconstruction process where you'll get a chance to really look at who your syllabus was written for, and also the language that you use, right? Does your language have the potential to exclude your students? So I hope you take the time to do that.